Ethan Gatsby was worth $4.7 billion when the girl accused him of murder. He stood under the hospital overhang, rain hammering the concrete around him, phone pressed to his ear. His CFO was mid-sentence, something about the Lumicella rollout exceeding projections by 18%, when she appeared. Soaked. Shaking. Eyes like open wounds. She stared at him for 3 seconds. Then she lunged. "You bastard." Ethan stumbled backward, phone clattering to the ground. Security would have grabbed her, but he'd sent his detail to wait in the car. Stupid. Arrogant. Now her hands were fists, pounding against his chest. Weak hits. Desperate. The kind that come from someone who has nothing left to lose. "You killed her," she sobbed. "You're killing her right now." "Miss, I don't." He caught her wrists. Gently. She was trembling so hard he thought she might collapse. "I don't know what you're talking about." She wrenched away from him, stumbled back. Rain plastered her dark hair to her face. She looked young, early 20s maybe, but her eyes were ancient with grief. "Ethan Gatsby." She said his name like a curse. "Gatsby Pharmaceuticals. You raised the price of Lumicella from $800 to $3,000 in 9 months." His stomach dropped. "My mother is dying upstairs because of you." Her voice cracked. Voigt-Koyanagi-Harada syndrome. Lumicella is the only drug that works. We can't afford it anymore. Insurance dropped us. We sold everything. Our house, my college fund, my dad's truck. She took a shaking breath. And she's still dying. The rain came down harder. Thunder cracked overhead. Ethan's mouth had gone completely dry. "What's your name?" "Why?" Venom dripped from the word. "So, you can send a lawyer? A cease and desist? Make sure I don't damage your precious reputation. So I know who you are." She laughed, broken, bitter. "Sarah Connor. My mother is Elizabeth Connor, room 347, palliative care. They moved her there yesterday, because there's nothing else they can do." Tears mixed with rain on her face. "She's 49 years old. My brother is 13. And you decided her life was worth less than your profit margin." Every word was a knife. Ethan had signed off on that price increase himself. He remembered the presentation, clean PowerPoint slides, projected revenue growth, shareholder value. The lead analyst had called it revenue optimization for a captured market. They'd never used the word people. "How long does she have?" His voice came out rough. 2 weeks. Maybe less. Sarah's jaw tightened. With Lumicella, she could have years. "But we're out of time and money, so I guess your shareholders win." His phone buzzed on the wet concrete between them. Probably his assistant. He had dinner at Per Se in 30 minutes with investors from Singapore. He left it there, screen down in a puddle. "Take me to her." Sarah's eyes widened. "What?" "Your mother. Room 347. Take me to her. Now." "Are you insane?" She stepped back. "Why would I let you anywhere near her? So you can feel better about yourself? Watch her die and tell yourself you care?" "I need to see what I've done." The words came from somewhere deep, somewhere he hadn't accessed in years. Since before his father's company collapsed. Since before he'd built an empire on the ruins. "Please." Sarah stared at him. Rain poured between them. Behind her, through the hospital's glass doors, fluorescent lights flickered over exhausted nurses and crying families. "You can't fix this," she whispered. "You can't walk in there with your billion-dollar smile and make it better. She's dying." "I know. Do you?" Her voice rose. "Do you actually know what that word means? Because from where I'm standing, you've been killing people with spreadsheets and stock portfolios while you sleep in penthouses and drink champagne." The truth of it hit him like a physical blow. "Sarah." They moved her to palliative care because her organs are failing. Her vision is almost gone. She's in constant pain. Sarah's voice broke completely. "This morning she asked me to tell my brother she loves him, because she's not sure she'll be conscious tomorrow. She's 49, and she's writing goodbye letters." Ethan's chest felt like it was caving in. "I just left a board meeting," he heard himself say. "We celebrated. The Lumicella price increase generated $340 million in additional revenue this quarter. They called me a genius. He looked at his hands. I never thought about the faces. Well, here's a face. Sarah's expression was pure devastation. Here's what your genius looks like in the real world. Lightning split the sky. Ethan made a decision. The kind that changes everything. If I can get her the medication, enough for a year, will you let me see her? Sarah froze. What? Lumicella. Full treatment protocol. 12 months. I'll have it delivered by tomorrow morning. You can't just, she shook her head. Why would you do that? Because you're right. The words came easier than he expected. Because I've been so focused on building an empire, I forgot what it was crushing. He stepped closer. Because your mother deserves to watch your brother grow up. Sarah's expression shifted, hope and suspicion warring in her eyes. And what do you want in return? To see what I've been hiding from. He held her gaze. To understand what I've become. For a long moment, she just stared at him. The rain soaked them both. His ruined suit. Her cheap jacket. The space between privilege and desperation. Room 347, she finally whispered. 3rd floor. Thank you so much for being here. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And if you're not already subscribed, hit that button now, because what Ethan discovers in room 347 will shatter everything he thought he knew about power, price, and the woman who'll make him choose between his empire and his soul. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor lasted 37 seconds. Ethan knew because he counted every one of them. Sarah stood in the corner, as far from him as the small space allowed. She'd stopped crying, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She kept clenching and unclenching her fists, like she was trying to hold on to something that kept slipping away. She doesn't know I'm out here, Sarah said suddenly. Her voice was hollow. I told her I was going to the cafeteria. She thinks I'm eating. She laughed, sharp, bitter. I haven't been able to eat in 3 days. The elevator dinged. 3rd floor. Ethan followed her into a hallway that smelled like disinfectant and despair. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. A nurse pushed a cart past them, wheels squeaking. Somewhere, a monitor beeped steadily. Sarah stopped outside room 347. Her hand hovered over the door handle. She was a teacher, she said quietly. High school English. She loved Steinbeck and Fitzgerald. She'd stay up late grading papers and drinking terrible instant coffee. Sarah's voice cracked. She always said the best part of her job was watching kids discover that words could change the world. Ethan didn't trust himself to speak. After she got diagnosed, she kept teaching. Even when the pain got bad. Even when her vision started going. Sarah turned to look at him, and the fierce love in her eyes was almost unbearable. She's the bravest person I've ever known. And she's in there dying because you decided profit mattered more than people.
I'm sorry, Ethan whispered.
The words felt pathetically inadequate. Sorry doesn't save her. Sarah pushed open the door. The woman in the bed looked nothing like Ethan had imagined. He'd been expecting frailty, maybe. The hollowed-out appearance of the terminally ill he'd seen in pharmaceutical trial photos. Elizabeth Connor was thin, yes. Her skin had a grayish pallor. But her eyes, when they focused on Sarah, blazed with such fierce maternal love that Ethan felt like an intruder witnessing something sacred. Baby. Elizabeth's voice was weak but warm. You didn't need to come back so fast. Did you eat? I ate, Mom. Sarah moved to the bedside, took her mother's hand. The lie came easily. She'd clearly had practice. How are you feeling? Oh, living the dream in my luxury suite. Elizabeth managed a smile. Then her gaze shifted, landing on Ethan. Her expression changed, confusion, then wariness. Who's your friend? Sarah's jaw tightened. This is someone who might be able to help. Ethan stepped forward. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to get back in his car and return to his penthouse and forget this ever happened. Instead, he extended his hand. Ethan Gatsby, Mrs. Connor. It's an honor to meet you. Elizabeth's eyes widened. Recognition flickered there. She knew the name. Of course she did. Everyone who'd been priced out of medication knew the names of the pharmaceutical executives who'd done it. But she took his hand anyway. Her grip was weak, trembling. "Mr. Gatsby." She glanced at Sarah, questions in her eyes. "He wants to help," Sarah said tightly. "With the medication." "Sarah, we talked about this. We can't accept." "Mom." Sarah's voice broke. "Please. Just please." Elizabeth studied her daughter's face. Something passed between them. Years of love, months of fear, the unspoken understanding of two people watching time run out. Then Elizabeth looked back at Ethan. "Why?" The question was simple. The answer wasn't. "Because your daughter made me see something I'd been refusing to look at." Ethan pulled up a chair, sat down. "Eye level. No power plays. I've spent the last 5 years building a company, making smart business decisions, maximizing shareholder value." He paused. "I never thought about who was paying the price for my success. And now you do?" Elizabeth's voice held no accusation, just exhaustion. "Now I'm trying to." He leaned forward. "Mrs. Connor, I can't undo what's been done. I can't give you back the house you sold or the time you've lost. But I can get you the medication you need, starting tomorrow." Elizabeth was quiet for a long moment. Behind her, monitors beeped. Rain continued to hammer against the window. "I used to teach The Great Gatsby," she said finally. "Every year. Junior English." Ethan blinked at the non sequitur. "I tell my students that Gatsby's tragedy wasn't that he was a criminal or a fraud. It was that he thought he could buy back the past. That money could fix everything he'd broken." She met his eyes. "Can I ask you something, Mr. Gatsby?" "Anything." "Are you doing this because you genuinely want to help? Or because you want to feel less guilty about the empire you've built on people suffering?" The question hit like a sledgehammer. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it. Every polished response he'd ever used in boardrooms or investor meetings evaporated. "I don't know," he said finally. Raw honesty. "Maybe both. Maybe I'm a selfish bastard who wants to feel better about himself." But he looked at Sarah, then back at Elizabeth. "Your daughter stood in the rain and called me a murderer. And she was right. So maybe this is selfish. But you still deserve to live." Elizabeth studied him for a long time. Her breathing was labored, painful. "My son's name is John," she said quietly. "He's 13. He plays basketball and hates math and wants to be a marine biologist." Her voice grew stronger. "He needs his mother. And I need to be there for him." "You will be," Ethan said. "I promise you." "Don't make promises you can't keep, Mr. Gatsby." "I don't." He stood. "I'll have the medication here by morning. Full treatment protocol. And I'm going to make sure every other patient who needs Lumicella can afford it too." Sarah's head snapped toward him. "What?" Ethan pulled out his phone. His hands were steady now. Purpose crystallized in his chest, sharp, clear, undeniable. "I'm going to fix this," he said. "All of it." "You can't just," Sarah started. "Watch me." He was already dialing his general counsel. It was 8:47 p.m. By midnight, everything would change. By morning, his empire would begin to burn. If you're enjoying this story, drop a comment below and let me know what you think Ethan should do next. And don't forget to subscribe because this is where everything Ethan thought he knew about power and loyalty gets destroyed. The call connected on the second ring. "Ethan?" "It's almost 9. Is everything?" "David." Ethan stepped into the hallway, leaving Sarah and her mother in the room. "I need you to draft emergency authorization for compassionate use pricing on Lumicella. Patient name Elizabeth Connor. Full treatment protocol for 12 months. 0 cost." Silence on the other end. "Then you're joking." "Do I sound like I'm joking?" David Chun had been Gatsby Pharmaceutical's general counsel for 3 years. Brilliant, ruthless, and utterly loyal. Until now, apparently. "Ethan, we can't just give away medication worth over $100,000. The board will." "I don't care what the board thinks." "Well, you should. Because what you're describing violates about 15 different corporate policies and..." David paused. "What the hell is going on? Where are you?" "Mount Sinai. 3rd floor." Watching a woman die because I priced her out of living. Another pause. Longer this time.
Jesus Christ, David Muttered.
Ethan, listen to me. I understand you're having some kind of moment, but you can't make decisions like this based on emotion. We have protocols, patient assistance programs, which take 6 weeks to process and require documentation most people can't provide. Ethan's voice hardened. Elizabeth Connor doesn't have 6 weeks. She has days, maybe hours. Then we'll expedite her application. No, the word came out like a gunshot. We're going to deliver the medication tomorrow morning. And then we're going to restructure the entire pricing model for Lumicella. The silence on the other end was deafening. You've lost your mind, David said finally. Maybe.
Get it done anyway.
Ethan ended the call. His phone immediately rang again.
David.
He declined it. It rang again.
Declined.
On the third attempt, he answered. I said, if you do this, the board will have you removed. David's voice was tight. Mitchell, Stevens, the whole executive committee, they'll vote you out. You know they've been looking for an excuse since the merger talks fell through. Let them try. Ethan. David, I need to know if you're with me or against me.
Right now.
A long exhale. You're serious about this? Completely. The pricing restructure. How far are you planning to take it? Ethan looked through the window of room 347. Sarah sat beside her mother's bed, holding her hand. Elizabeth's eyes were closed. She looked so small against the white sheets. As far as it takes, Ethan said quietly. That could destroy the company. Shareholders will revolt. Stock price will tank. We could lose everything. Then we lose everything. He turned away from the window. I can't build an empire on corpses anymore. David was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed.
Softer.
My sister has lupus. The medication she needs went from $200 a month to $1,500 last year. Different company, same playbook. He cleared his throat. She's maxing out credit cards to stay alive. Ethan closed his eyes.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Me too. A pause. I'll draft the authorization. But Ethan, once we start this, there's no going back. You understand that. I understand. The board meeting is scheduled for Thursday. 2 days. They'll come for you. Let them. He ended the call and turned back to room 347. Through the window, he saw Sarah stand abruptly. Her body language screamed alarm. Ethan was through the door in seconds. Elizabeth was convulsing. Her back arched. The monitors screamed. Sarah grabbed for the call button, pressed it frantically.
Mom.
Mom, stay with me. 2 nurses burst through the door, followed by a doctor Ethan didn't recognize. They moved Sarah aside with practiced efficiency. She's seizing, the first nurse said. Get the crash cart. Sarah stumbled backward, and Ethan caught her before she fell. She twisted in his arms, trying to get back to her mother. Let me go, I need to. They're helping her, Ethan said. Let them work. She's dying. Sarah's voice broke into a sob. She's dying right now. The doctor barked orders. More people flooded the room. Equipment. Medication. The organized chaos of emergency medicine. Ethan pulled Sarah into the hallway. She collapsed against him, her entire body shaking with sobs that seemed to come from somewhere primal and infinite. I can't lose her, she gasped. I can't. You won't. Ethan held her tighter. The medication will be here tomorrow. She's going to make it. You don't know that.
Ido.
He pulled back, gripped her shoulders, forced her to look at him. Sarah, I swear to you, your mother will not die. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to do. She stared at him with red, swollen eyes. Why do you care? You don't even know us. I care because, he stopped. The truth lodged in his throat like broken glass. Because in the last hour, this woman had shown him who he'd become. Because her bravery had cracked open something in him he'd thought was dead. Because looking at her pain was like staring into a mirror that reflected every decision he'd ever made and found them all wanting. Because somewhere in the rain and the accusations and the desperate love he'd witnessed in that hospital room, Something fundamental had shifted in his universe. "I care because you made me see," he said finally. "And I can't unsee it." Sarah's expression crumbled. She turned back to the room, where doctors still worked frantically over her mother's bed. "If she dies before the medication gets here," her voice was barely a whisper. "If I lose her because you waited too long to care." "You won't." Ethan pulled out his phone again. "I'm calling the head of our research facility. We keep emergency samples for clinical trials. I'll have someone drive it here tonight. It's after 9. I don't care if it's midnight. Your mother is getting that medication in the next 2 hours." He was already dialing. Dr. Patricia Reeves, head of R&D. She answered on the first ring, her voice sharp.
Ethan?
"What's wrong?" "I need emergency access to our Lumicella trial samples. How fast can you get them to Mount Sinai?" "Tonight?" We'd need authorization from." "You have my authorization. I'm the CEO. Get it here in 90 minutes or you're fired." Sarah grabbed his arm. Her eyes were wide with something that looked like hope and terror mixed together. Inside room 347, the monitors stopped screaming. The doctor emerged, pulling off his gloves. His expression was carefully neutral. "She's stabilized," he said. "For now. What happens next will change everything. Drop a comment if you think Ethan can really save her, and hit subscribe because the empire starts to crack and Sarah becomes the only thing standing between Ethan and total destruction." The medication arrived at 11:43 p.m. Dr. Patricia Reeves delivered it herself, bursting through the hospital entrance with a temperature-controlled case clutched to her chest like a lifeline. She was 62, brilliant, and had never once questioned Ethan's decisions in the 7 years she'd worked for him.
Until now.
"This is insane," she hissed, cornering him in the hallway outside Elizabeth's room. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I had to pull samples from an active trial. The FDA paperwork alone will be handled." Ethan took the case from her. "Thank you, Patricia." "Thank me?" Her eyes flashed. "Ethan, I got 3 calls on my drive here. Board members. They know what you're doing. Mitchell is convening an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning." Ethan's jaw tightened. Robert Mitchell, chairman of the board, pharmaceutical industry veteran, and the man who'd mentored Ethan through his first 5 years as CEO. Also the man who'd masterminded the Lumicella pricing strategy. "Let him. He's going to destroy you." Patricia's voice dropped. "He has votes locked. Stevens, Carlisle, probably Henderson too. They can remove you with a simple majority." "Then they remove me." Ethan turned toward Elizabeth's room. "Right now, I have more important things to worry about." Patricia caught his arm. "Who is she?" "What?" "The girl."
Sarah.
"I saw her when I came in." Patricia's expression softened slightly. "I've known you for 7 years. I've never seen you like this." "So who is she?" Ethan looked through the window. Sarah sat in the same chair she'd occupied for hours, head resting on her mother's bed, one hand still clutching Elizabeth's. She'd finally fallen asleep from pure exhaustion. "She's someone who told me the truth," he said quietly. "And I'm trying to figure out if it's too late to do anything about it." Patricia studied him for a long moment. "The truth about what?" "Everything." He met her eyes. "Every decision we've made. Every price increase we've justified. Every patient his voice caught. Every person we've killed for profit." "Ethan. Don't." He held up a hand. "Don't tell me it's more complicated than that. Don't give me the speech about R&D costs and shareholder responsibility. I've given that speech. I've believed it." He looked back at Sarah. "But I can't anymore." Patricia was quiet. "Then, what are you going to do?" "Save her mother. Then figure out the rest." He pushed open the door. Sarah jerked awake, disoriented. Her eyes found the case in Ethan's hands, and something raw and desperate flooded her face. "Is that Lumicella? Fresh from our research facility." He set it carefully on the bedside table. "Where's her attending physician?" "Dr. Morrison." Sarah stood, swaying slightly. "I'll get him." She rushed out. Elizabeth stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Mr. Gatsby," she whispered. Her voice was thread-thin. "You're still here." I made a promise. He moved closer. The medication is here. Dr. Morrison will administer it soon. Tears slipped down Elizabeth's cheeks. Why are you doing this? Because your daughter is the bravest person I've ever met, Ethan said. And she loves you enough to stand in the rain and call a billionaire a murderer. That kind of love deserves to be protected. Elizabeth's hand found his. Her grip was weak, but her eyes held his with fierce intensity. She talks like she's strong, but she's terrified. She hasn't slept in days. Hasn't eaten. She's falling apart trying to hold everyone else together. I know. If this works, if I survive this, you have to promise me something. Anything. Don't hurt her. Elizabeth's voice gained strength. I saw how she looked at you when you made your calls. Like maybe you were something more than the monster she'd built up in her head. She squeezed his hand. She's been through enough. If you're going to be in her life, you have to be all in. No guilt projects. No redemption arc that ends when you get bored. The words hit like a physical blow. I would never. You're a billionaire CEO who just met my daughter 3 hours ago. Elizabeth's gaze was unflinching. Forgive me if I'm skeptical about your long-term commitment. Before Ethan could respond, Sarah returned with Dr. Morrison, a tired-looking man in his 50s with kind eyes and the weary expression of someone who delivered bad news for a living. Mr. Gatsby. Morrison's tone was carefully professional. Sarah tells me you've obtained Lamicella. Fresh samples. Properly stored. Ready for immediate use. Morrison examined the case, checked the temperature logs, verified the medication batch numbers. His eyebrows rose higher with each check. This is highly irregular, he said finally. The chain of custody is documented. Patricia stepped into the room, tablet in hand. All FDA protocols followed. I can provide complete documentation. Morrison looked between them, then at Elizabeth, then at Sarah. Something in his expression shifted. All right, he said quietly. Let's get started. The first dose took 7 minutes to administer. Sarah held her mother's hand the entire time, whispering prayers or promises or both. Ethan stood near the window, giving them space, feeling like an intruder in a moment that wasn't his. His phone buzzed. 17 missed calls, 12 texts, 3 voicemails, all from board members. He silenced it. Mr. Gatsby? Sarah's voice was soft. She stood by the door, arms wrapped around herself. Can I talk to you? Outside. They stepped into the hallway. The hospital had that deep night quiet, hushed voices, distant monitors, the occasional squeak of wheels on linoleum. Thank you, Sarah said. Her voice cracked. I know I was horrible to you. I know I blamed you for everything. But you came back. You kept your promise. She stopped, wiping her eyes. You're saving her. I should have done it years ago, Ethan said. For her. For everyone. Sarah looked up at him. In the fluorescent lighting, he could see the exhaustion etched into her face, the fear that hadn't quite left her eyes, the cautious hope that was just beginning to bloom. What's going to happen to you? She asked. Your company. Your board. I heard Dr. Reeves. They're coming after you. Probably. Because of us? Because of me. He held her gaze. Because I finally did what I should have done from the beginning. Sarah stepped closer. Close enough that he could smell her shampoo, something vanilla and simple. Close enough to see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. I misjudged you, she whispered. No, Ethan's voice was rough. You judged me exactly right. I was everything you called me. I'm just trying to be something different now. Why? The question hung between them. Because you made me see. Because your courage shattered every excuse I'd built. Because standing here with you feels more real than anything I've done in 5 years. Because someone had to, he said instead. Sarah's hand found his. Her fingers were cold, trembling. Don't let them destroy you, she said. Whatever happens tomorrow, don't let them take this away. Her touch burned through him like electricity. The hospital intercom crackled. Dr. Morrison to room 347. Dr. Morrison to room 347. They both froze. Then ran. What happens in that room will change everything, Comment below if you think Elizabeth will survive, and smash that subscribe button. Elizabeth was sitting up. Not just awake, sitting up. Her eyes were clear. Color had returned to her cheeks. She was breathing without the labored wheeze that had rattled her chest for months. "Mom," Sarah's voice broke as she rushed to the bedside. "Oh my God. Baby." Elizabeth's smile was radiant. "I can see you. Really see you. Not just shadows." She reached up, cupped Sarah's face. "You look so tired." I don't care. Sarah dissolved into tears, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. Dr. Morrison stood nearby, tablet in hand, looking stunned. "Her vitals are stabilizing. Blood pressure normalizing. The inflammation markers are already dropping." He looked at Ethan. "I've never seen Limoncello work this fast. How long before we know if it's working long-term?" Ethan asked.
Days.
"Maybe a week. But this," Morrison shook his head. "This is remarkable." Ethan's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. David Chun. He stepped into the hallway to answer. "Tell me you have good news." "I have complicated news." David's voice was tense. "The authorization went through. But Ethan Mitchell knows. He's called an emergency board meeting for 7 a.m. He's moving to remove you as CEO." "I expected that. There's more." A pause. "He's not just coming after you. He's filing a motion to reverse the compassionate use authorization. Claims you exceeded your authority. If it passes, they'll pull the medication." The floor dropped out from under Ethan's feet. "They can't do that."
Elisabeth Connor will die.
Mitchell doesn't care. He's framing it as a precedent issue. Says if we give away medication every time a CEO has a crisis of conscience, the company will collapse. David's voice hardened. "He's also threatening legal action against you personally for misappropriation of company assets." Ethan's hand clenched around the phone. "What are my options?" "Fight him. But you need votes. And right now you don't have them." "Then I'll get them."
How?
"The meeting is in 7 hours. Most of the board is already aligned with Mitchell. He's been working them for months. This is just the excuse he needed." Ethan's mind raced. Mitchell. Robert Mitchell, who'd taught him everything about the pharmaceutical industry. Who'd backed him when the company was struggling. Who'd celebrated every pricing increase like a victory. Who'd built his entire fortune on the same ruthless calculation Ethan had just abandoned. "What if I go public?" Ethan said. "Press conference. Announce the pricing changes before the board can stop me. That's corporate suicide. They'll sue you into oblivion. And even if you win, the company will be tore apart in the process. Better than watching Elizabeth Connor die because I wasn't brave enough to finish what I started." David was quiet for a moment. "You're really going to burn it all down for her? For all of them? Everyone we've hurt? Everyone we've priced out of living?" "Ethan, they'll destroy you. Your reputation, your fortune, everything you've built. Then they destroy me." Ethan looked through the window at Sarah, still holding her mother, both of them crying and laughing. Some things are worth more than an empire. He ended the call. When he turned, Sarah was standing in the hallway. Her expression told him she'd heard everything. "They're going to take the medication away." Her voice was flat.
Dead. No.
"I heard your lawyer. They're going to reverse the authorization. My mother will." She pressed her hands to her mouth, choking back a sob. Ethan crossed to her in 2 strides, gripped her shoulders. "Sarah, listen to me. They are not taking that medication. I will fight every single one of them before I let that happen. You can't fight your whole board. Watch me. They'll destroy you." Her voice rose. "Everything you have, your company, your money, your entire life, they'll take it all. I don't care." "Yes, you do." She shoved against his chest. "Don't lie to me. Don't pretend you're some kind of hero willing to lose everything for strangers. You're not a stranger." The words came out raw, unfiltered. Sarah froze. "I met you 4 hours ago," Ethan continued, "and in that time you've done something no one else has managed in 5 years. You made me remember what it feels like to be human, to care about something more than profit margins and stock prices." He stepped closer. "So no, you're not a stranger. And I'm not letting your mother die. Not for Mitchell. Not for the board. Not for anyone. Sarah stared at him. Tears streaked her face. Why are you doing this? Because you stood in the rain and called me a murderer, and you were right.
His voice dropped.
Because your mother is upstairs teaching me more about courage in one night than I've learned in 36 years. Because...
He stopped.
The truth sat on his tongue like fire. Because when I look at you, I see everything I should have been fighting for all along. Because somewhere between your accusations and your tears and your fierce, desperate love for your family, I started caring about you in a way that terrifies me. Because it's the right thing to do, he finished. Sarah's hand came up, fingers touching his chest, right over his heart. You're going to lose everything. Maybe. They'll take your company, your reputation, everything you've worked for. Probably. And you're still going to fight them. Until my last breath. Something shifted in her expression, surprise, wonder, and something deeper that made his pulse quicken. I was so sure you were a monster, she whispered. I was. Maybe I still am. But he covered her hand with his. Maybe monsters can change. The hospital lights flickered. Outside, dawn was beginning to break over the city. In 7 hours, Ethan would walk into a boardroom and face the people who'd made him a billionaire. In 7 hours, his empire would begin its collapse. But right now, Sarah Connor was looking at him like he might actually be worth saving, and that felt more valuable than anything he'd ever built. I need to make some calls, he said softly. Prepare for the meeting. But I'm not leaving the hospital. I'll be here when...
His phone rang. Not David this time.
Mitchell himself. Ethan answered. Robert. You arrogant son of a bitch. Mitchell's voice was ice and venom. Do you have any idea what you've done? Saved a woman's life. Yes. You've violated your fiduciary duty. Exceeded your authority. Stolen company property. Each word was a hammer blow. I'm going to bury you, Ethan. You and that little patient assistant stunt. By noon, you'll be out. By next week, you'll be bankrupt. And that woman upstairs? She'll lose the medication the second your authorization is revoked. Sarah's face went white. She could hear Mitchell's voice through the phone. Try it, Ethan said quietly. See what happens. What are you going to do? You have no votes.
No le verí. No.
I have the truth. Ethan's voice hardened. And I'm going public with it. Every pricing decision. Every patient we've killed for profit. Every email, every board meeting, every calculation that valued money over human lives. All of it. Silence on the other end. You're bluffing. Am I? Because I have access to 5 years of internal documents. Pricing strategies. Revenue projections. Communications that show exactly how we decided who lives and who dies based on profit margins. Ethan's jaw tightened. Try to remove me, Robert. I dare you. Because I'll make sure the whole world knows exactly what we've built. You'll destroy yourself in the process.
Good.
Maybe I deserve it. He hung up. Sarah was trembling. Did you just threaten to expose your entire company? Yes. You can't, she grabbed his arm.
Ethan, that's insane.
They'll sue you. Criminal charges. You'll lose everything and probably go to prison. Then I go to prison. He turned to face her fully. Sarah, I've spent 5 years building an empire on other people's suffering. If burning it down is what it takes to make sure your mother and everyone like her can survive, then that's what I'll do. Her eyes searched his face, looking for lies, for cracks, for the monster she'd first accused him of being. She didn't find it. You're serious, she breathed. Completely. Sarah's hand slid up to his face, fingers trembling against his jaw. You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the most self-destructive. Probably both. She laughed, broken, disbelieving. Then, before he could process what was happening, she pulled him down and kissed him. It was desperate and grateful and terrified all at once. Her lips tasted like salt from dried tears. Her hands clutched his shirt like he was the only solid thing in a collapsing world. Ethan froze for a heartbeat, then wrapped his arms around her, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, and for a moment, nothing else existed. Not the board meeting, not the threat of destruction, not the empire crumbling around them. Just this. Just her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sarah pressed her forehead to his. "Don't let them win," she whispered. "Please. Don't let them take this away." "I won't." He kissed her forehead. "I promise." His phone buzzed. A text from David. "Mitchell just leaked to the press. You're trending on Twitter. They're calling you unstable. This is about to get ugly." Ethan looked at the message, then at Sarah. The war had begun. Everything is about to explode. Drop a comment with your predictions and subscribe. The story broke at 5:47 a.m. Gatsby Pharma CEO in mental breakdown. Gives away $100,000 in drugs. Threatens to expose company. Ethan watched his phone explode with notifications. Twitter. News sites. Financial networks. His face on every screen. The professional headshot from the company website next to headlines screaming about instability, recklessness, betrayal. Mitchell had moved fast. Faster than Ethan had anticipated. Oh, God. Sarah stood beside him in the hospital cafeteria, staring at her own phone. "They're saying you had a psychotic break. That you're..." Her voice cracked. "They're making you sound insane." Ethan's jaw tightened. "That's the play. Discredit me before I can expose them."
His phone rang.
"David. Tell me you're seeing this," David said, without preamble. "I'm seeing it." Mitchell scheduled a press conference for 9 a.m. right after the board meeting. He's going to announce your removal and frame it as the company protecting itself from an unstable leader. David's voice was grim. "Ethan, he's winning. Social media is eating this up. Stock price is already dropping." "What about the board votes?" "Mitchell has 6 confirmed. You need 5 to block him. Right now, you have 2. Maybe 3 if Henderson hasn't flipped." Ethan closed his eyes. The math was brutal. Options. Honestly, step down quietly. Take a severance package. Walk away before this destroys you completely. And Elizabeth Connor's medication? Silence. "David, what happens to her medication if I walk away?" "Mitchell will revoke the authorization within hours." David stopped. "She'll lose access." Sarah made a small, wounded sound. Ethan reached for her hand, squeezed it.
"Then I fight," he said.
"You'll lose everything." "I know." He ended the call. Sarah pulled away from him, hugging herself. "This is my fault. If you hadn't met me." "Sarah, you had everything. A company. A fortune, a future, and I ruined it." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "God, what have I done?" Ethan crossed to her, gripped her shoulders. "You didn't ruin anything. You saved me. I destroyed you. You showed me who I'd become. And I won't go back to being that person. No matter what it costs." "It's costing you everything." Her voice rose. "Your company, your reputation, they're going to take it all, and my mother." She choked on a sob. "If they take the medication, she dies. And it'll be because you met me. Because you tried to help us." "Sarah, listen to me." "No," she stepped back, shaking her head. "No, you need to walk away. Before this gets worse. Before they destroy you completely." "I'm not walking away." "Ethan, please. I love you." The words hung between them like a thunderclap. Sarah froze.
"What?"
"I know it's insane. I know I met you 6 hours ago. I know I have no right to feel this way." Ethan's voice was raw. "But somewhere between your accusations and your courage and watching you fight for your family, I fell in love with you. And I'm not walking away. Not from you. Not from your mother. Not from doing the right thing." Sarah stared at him. Her face was a mess of tears and shock, and something that looked like terror. "You can't love me," she whispered. "You don't even know me. I know you stood in the rain and called a billionaire a murderer because you love your mother that much. I know you haven't slept or eaten in days because you're too busy being strong for everyone else. I know," his voice broke. "I know you're the bravest person I've ever met, and if losing everything means keeping you and your family safe, then I'll lose it gladly." "Stop." Sarah backed toward the door. Stop saying things like that. Stop making promises you can't keep. Sarah. My mother's going to die because of this. Because you tried to help us and your board turned it into a weapon. And you're going to lose everything, your company, your money, maybe your freedom if they press charges. She was shaking. How is that love? How is any of this love? Because love isn't about keeping everything safe and perfect, Ethan said. It's about choosing someone even when it costs you everything. And I'm choosing you. The cafeteria doors burst open. Patricia Reeves rushed in, tablet clutched to her chest, face pale.
Ethan.
We have a problem. What now? Mitchell filed an emergency injunction. Claims you stole company property, the Lumicella samples. Judge granted a temporary restraining order. She thrust the tablet at him. They're sending security to confiscate the medication. They'll be here in 20 minutes. The world tilted. No, Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. No, they can't. Ethan was already moving, phone to his ear, calling David back. Tell me there's a way to fight this. Not in 20 minutes. The injunction is legal. If you interfere, they can have you arrested for contempt. I don't care. Ethan, listen to me. If they arrest you, you can't fight Mitchell at the board meeting. You can't expose the company. You lose everything and Elizabeth Connor still dies. David's voice was desperate. You need to let them take the medication and fight this the right way. The right way takes weeks. She has days. I know, but if you go down now, there's no one left to fight for her. Ethan looked at Sarah. Her face was ashen, devastated. 20 minutes, he said. Find me another option in 20 minutes. He hung up. Sarah was already running toward the elevator. Ethan chased her, caught her arm. Where are you going? To my mother. To tell her, her voice shattered. To tell her I'm sorry. That I tried. That. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Robert Mitchell stepped out. He was 63, silver-haired, impeccably dressed. Behind him stood 2 security guards and a woman Ethan recognized, the company's head of legal compliance. Ethan. Mitchell's smile was cold. We need to talk. Get out of my way, Robert. I'm afraid I can't do that. Mitchell gestured to the guards. We're here to retrieve company property that was illegally distributed. The medication in room 347. Sarah lunged at him. You bastard, she'll die. Ethan caught her, held her back. Sarah, don't. Let me go. She struggled against him. He's killing her. He's killing my mother. Miss Connor. Mitchell's voice was ice. I understand you're upset, but this is a legal matter between Gatsby Pharmaceuticals and its former CEO. Former. Ethan's voice was deadly quiet. As of 6 a.m. this morning, the board voted to remove you effective immediately. Unanimous decision. Mitchell's smile widened. You no longer have any authority over company assets, including the medication you stole. You can't do this. The meeting isn't until 7. We moved it up. Didn't David tell you? Mitchell's expression was pure triumph. Oh, that's right. Your lawyer quit 20 minutes ago. Apparently, he didn't want to be associated with a mentally unstable CEO who's about to face criminal charges. The floor dropped out from under Ethan's feet. You're lying. Am I? Mitchell pulled out his phone, showed him the screen. An email from David. I'm sorry. I can't do this. They're offering me general counsel if I walk away. I have a family to protect. Sarah's knees buckled. Ethan held her up, but barely. His own legs felt like water. It's over, Ethan. Mitchell nodded to the guards. Retrieve the medication. Room 347. No. Sarah's scream echoed through the hallway. Please, please, she'll die. Mitchell didn't even look at her. The guards moved past them toward the elevator. Ethan's mind raced. No lawyer. No board position. No authority. In minutes, they'd take the medication that was keeping Elizabeth alive. He had nothing left. Nothing except... Wait. His voice cut through the chaos. Mitchell paused.
What?
I'll give you what you want. All of it. The documents. The evidence. Everything I was going to use to expose the company. Ethan's voice was steady despite the world crumbling around him. In exchange for one thing. You're in no position to negotiate. I have 5 years of internal communications backed up on a private server. Pricing strategies. Board discussions. Every decision that proves we knowingly priced people out of life-saving medication. He met Mitchell's eyes. You take that medication, and in 6 hours, every major news outlet gets the files. Your face on every screen. Criminal investigations. Congressional hearings. The end of Gatsby Pharmaceuticals. Mitchell's smile faltered. Or, Ethan continued, I give you the files. All of them. Complete immunity for the company and everyone involved. In exchange, Elizabeth Connor gets her full treatment protocol. 12 months. Guaranteed. Ethan, no. Sarah grabbed his arm. That's everything. You can't.
Done.
Mitchell's voice was sharp.
Quick. Too quick.
Because he knew what Ethan was sacrificing. The only weapon he had. The only way to save anyone else. I want it in writing, Ethan said. Legal contract. Elizabeth Connor's treatment guaranteed, regardless of what happens to me.
Fine.
My lawyers will draft it within the hour. And Sarah and her family, no retaliation. No legal action. They're protected. Mitchell's eyes narrowed. You care about her that much? Yes. Interesting. Something cruel flickered in Mitchell's expression. All right. The girl and her family are protected. But you, Ethan, you're done.
No severance. No references.
And if you ever try to work in pharmaceuticals again, I'll bury you. I don't care. Mitchell studied him for a long moment, then nodded to his legal counsel. Draft the agreement. I want it signed before the press conference. He turned and walked away, guards following. The hallway fell silent. Sarah was staring at Ethan like she didn't recognize him. What did you just do? I saved your mother. You gave them everything. Every piece of evidence. Every way to expose them. Her voice rose. Ethan, you just let them win. You let them get away with everything. I kept you safe. He cupped her face. You and your mother and your brother. That's all that matters. No, she shoved him away. You can't. You sacrificed everything for us. Your company, your future, your only chance to make this right. I made it right. Your mother lives. That's right enough. At what cost? Tears streamed down her face. You're left with nothing. You destroyed yourself for strangers. You're not strangers. His voice broke. Not anymore. Sarah collapsed against him, sobbing into his chest. Ethan held her while she shook, while the hospital woke around them, while somewhere upstairs her mother breathed easier because of a choice that had cost him everything. His empire was gone. His reputation was destroyed. His only weapon against Mitchell's corruption surrendered. But Elizabeth Connor would live. And maybe, Ethan thought as he held Sarah, that was the only thing that had ever really mattered. Can Ethan find a way back from losing everything? Comment your thoughts and subscribe. The contract arrived at 7:32 a.m. Ethan sat in the hospital cafeteria, Sarah beside him, both of them running on nothing but adrenaline and desperation. His phone was dead, not from battery but from the endless stream of messages he'd finally silenced. News alerts. Former colleagues distancing themselves. Investors demanding answers. The legal courier placed the document on the table. 23 pages of dense legalese that boiled down to one thing: Ethan's complete surrender in exchange for Elizabeth Connor's life. You don't have to sign this, Sarah said quietly. She looked destroyed, exhausted, terrified, and something else.
Guilty.
We'll find another way. There is no other way. Ethan picked up the pen. And even if there was, I'd still choose this. Why? Her voice cracked. Why would you destroy yourself for us? He looked at her. Really looked at her. The girl who'd stood in the rain and shown him the truth. Who'd fought for her family with every ounce of courage she possessed. Who'd somehow become the most important person in his world in less than 12 hours. Because some things matter more than empires, he said softly.
He signed.
The courier collected the document and left. Ethan sat back, feeling oddly hollow. 5 years of work. Billions in assets. The power to change an entire industry.
Gone.
I'm so sorry, Sarah whispered. I'm so. Don't. He took her hand. Don't apologize for living. For fighting for your family. That's the only thing worth anything in this world. His phone, still clutched in his other hand, buzzed. A number he didn't recognize. Against his better judgment, he answered. Ethan Gatsby. Mr. Gatsby, my name is Jennifer Kim. I'm a reporter with ProPublica. The voice was young, sharp, energized. I need 5 minutes of your time. I'm not giving interviews. I know what Mitchell did. The board meeting. The vote. The medication.
A pause.
And I know about the 5 years of documents you just traded away. Ethan's blood ran cold. How do you? I've been investigating Gatsby Pharmaceuticals for 8 months. Price gouging. Patient deaths. The Lumicella increase specifically. Her voice quickened. I have sources inside your company.
People who are sick of what's happening.
And when I heard what you did tonight, what you sacrificed, they started talking. I don't understand what you want from me. The documents you gave Mitchell, did you keep copies? Ethan closed his eyes.
No.
That was the deal. Everything deleted. Server wiped. What about emails? Personal correspondence? Anything not on the company server? His mind raced. The company server. Yes, he'd wiped it. But his personal email. I have emails, he said slowly. Personal account. Communications with board members. Some pricing discussions. Send them to me. Everything you have. Let me do the investigation Mitchell just killed. I can't. The contract I signed, if I violate it, Elizabeth Connor loses her medication. Mitchell made sure of that. What if you didn't send them? Jennifer's voice was urgent. What if someone else found them? Your email was hacked. By an unknown third party. You had no control over it. Sarah grabbed Ethan's arm, her eyes wide. That's... Ethan stopped. It was exactly the kind of loophole Mitchell would use. The kind of ruthless strategy that had built the pharmaceutical industry's worst practices. Ethan had sworn he'd never be that person again. But this wasn't about him. It was about every patient who'd been priced out of living. Every family destroyed by calculated greed. Every person Mitchell would hurt if he walked away clean. If I did this, Ethan said carefully, how do I know you'll use the information responsibly? I've spent 8 months on this investigation. I've interviewed 47 patients who lost access to medication because of price increases. 12 died during my reporting. Jennifer's voice hardened. I'm not letting Mitchell win. Not if there's a way to stop him. Ethan looked at Sarah. She was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. Give me your email, he said. 20 minutes later, every personal email Ethan had exchanged with board members for the past 5 years was in Jennifer Kim's inbox. Pricing strategies. Revenue projections. Discussions about which patient populations could be optimized for maximum profit. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. Now what? Sarah asked, as Ethan set down his phone. Now we wait. If Jennifer can build a case, if she can prove what Mitchell and the board have done, he stopped. Maybe I didn't lose everything for nothing. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then, I need to tell you something. The seriousness in her tone made Ethan's stomach clench. What? When you said you loved me. She looked down at their joined hands. I didn't know what to say. Because it felt impossible. We just met. You don't really know me. And everything was falling apart so fast. Sarah, you don't have to. Let me finish. She squeezed his hand. I didn't know what to say because I felt it too. This impossible, terrifying thing that doesn't make sense. She looked up, met his eyes. I spent hours hating you, blaming you for everything. And then you showed up and fought for my mother like she was your own family. You sacrificed everything. Your company, your fortune, your entire life for strangers. For you, Ethan corrected softly. I did it for you. I know. Her voice was barely a whisper. And that's the most terrifying part. Because I believe you. And she stopped, took a shaky breath. I think I'm falling in love with you too. The words hit him like lightning. You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it because I feel guilty. Or because you saved my mother. Sarah shifted closer, her free hand coming up to his face. I'm saying it because when I look at you, I see someone who chose to be better. Who chose people over profit, love over power, sacrifice over safety. Her thumb brushed his cheek. I see someone worth loving. Ethan pulled her to him, kissing her with everything he had left. It was different from the desperate kiss hours earlier. This was deeper, more certain, tinged with hope instead of fear. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Sarah rested her forehead against his. We're going to get through this, she whispered. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Together, Ethan echoed. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Patricia Reeves. I quit this morning. But before I did, I made copies of everything, research data, clinical trials, internal memos Mitchell wanted buried. If you're still fighting, I want to help. Then another text, different number. Ethan, it's David. I'm sorry I walked away.
Mitchell threatened my family.
But I can't live with myself if I let him win. I'm coming back. Let me help fix this. Then another, Mr. Gatsby, this is Dr. Morrison. I've been documenting patient deaths related to medication pricing for 2 years. If you're building a case against Gatsby Pharma, I have evidence. Ethan stared at his phone as message after message poured in. Employees,
Doctors,
researchers, people he'd worked with, people he'd never met, all of them offering the same thing. Help. What's happening? Sarah asked. I think, Ethan's voice caught. I think people are choosing to fight. The cafeteria door burst open. Patricia Reeves stood there, laptop bag over her shoulder, determination blazing in her eyes. I have everything, she said. Every document Mitchell tried to bury. Every study showing we knew our prices were killing people. She crossed to their table, set down her laptop. And I know how to take him down. Behind her, David Chin appeared, looking exhausted but resolute. I brought the board bylaws. There's a provision Mitchell forgot about. A way to call a vote of no confidence if we can prove malfeasance. We'd need evidence, Ethan said. We have evidence. Patricia opened her laptop. Years of it. And with Jennifer Kim's investigation, we might actually have enough to force a federal inquiry. Sarah's grip on Ethan's hand tightened. Can we really do this? Can we actually stop him? Ethan looked around the table. Patricia. David. The phone still lighting up with messages from people ready to stand against corruption. 12 hours ago, he'd been a billionaire CEO building an empire on suffering. Now he had nothing except the people who'd chosen to fight alongside him. It felt like everything. Yes, he said. We can stop him. Patricia smiled, fierce and determined. Then let's burn it down. The fight is just beginning. Leave a comment if you're ready to see Mitchell fall, and smash that subscribe button. Mitchell's press conference was scheduled for 9 a.m. At 8:47, Jennifer Kim published her article, Gatsby Pharmaceuticals, A Decade of Death by Design. Internal documents reveal systematic price manipulation that killed thousands. Ethan watched it go live from the hospital cafeteria, surrounded by Patricia, David, and a growing crowd of former employees who'd answered his call. The article was devastating. 40 pages of documentation, patient testimonials, internal emails showing calculated decisions to price medications beyond reach. And every piece of evidence pointed directly at Robert Mitchell. It's trending, Patricia said, monitoring social media on her laptop. #1 on Twitter. CNN just picked it up. So did the Times. Ethan's phone rang. An unknown number. He answered. You son of a bitch. Mitchell's voice was pure venom. You violated the contract. I didn't send her anything from the company server. That was the agreement. What happened to my personal emails? Ethan's voice was ice. Well, that's unfortunate. Seems there was a security breach. You think you're clever? You think this changes anything? Mitchell's laugh was harsh. I still have the board. I still have the company. And Elizabeth Connor's medication? I'm revoking the authorization right now. No, you're not. David leaned toward the phone. Because you're about to have much bigger problems. The SEC just opened an investigation based on Jennifer's article, and the FBI is requesting documents related to your pricing practices. Silence on the other end. Furthermore, David continued, his voice gaining strength, I've filed an emergency motion to reinstate Ethan as CEO based on evidence of board malfeasance. The emergency hearing is in 90 minutes. And thanks to Patricia's documentation, we can prove you violated your fiduciary duty by prioritizing personal profit over shareholder and patient welfare. This is insane. You can't. We already did. Patricia pulled up another screen. Oh, and Robert? Those 6 board members who voted with you this morning? 4 of them just resigned. Turns out they don't want it to be associated with federal investigations. The other 2 are requesting an immediate vote to remove you as chairman. The silence stretched. Ethan could almost hear Mitchell's world crumbling. You've destroyed everything, Mitchell finally said. The company's stock is in free fall. Investor confidence is gone. You've killed Gatsby Pharmaceuticals. No, Ethan said quietly. I'm saving it. From you. He hung up. Sarah stood near the window, arms wrapped around herself. Ethan crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. It's working, he said. Mitchell's done. But the company, you heard him. The stock price can be rebuilt. Under new leadership. With new values. He tilted her chin up. Your mother is safe. That's all that matters. Mr. Gatsby? A young woman approached. Early 20s. Nervous. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm Sophie Williams. I worked in patient services. Her voice cracked. I was the one who had to tell people we couldn't help them. That they didn't qualify for assistance programs. I watched them cry and beg, and I had to follow the scripts we were given. Ethan felt Sarah stiffen in his arms. I quit this morning, Sophie continued. After I read the article. After I realized I'd been part of. She stopped, wiping her eyes. I want to help. However I can. I have documentation. Calls I recorded. Everything. Thank you, Ethan said. Send everything to David. We'll make sure it's used. Sophie nodded and moved away. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, a line had formed, employees, former patients, family members who'd lost loved ones. All of them with stories. With evidence. With the courage to finally speak. Patricia looked up from her laptop, her expression odd.
Ethan.
You need to see this. She turned the screen. Social media had erupted, not with condemnation, but with support. Hashtags trending. Hashtag justice for patients. Hashtag Gatsby redemption. Hashtag people over profit. And underneath it all, thousands of stories. People sharing how pharmaceutical price increases had destroyed their families. How they'd lost parents, children, siblings because medication became unaffordable. They're calling you a hero, Patricia said softly. I'm not a hero. I was part of the problem. But you chose to be part of the solution. David stood. That's what matters. And right now we need to get to that courthouse. The hearing starts in 40 minutes. The emergency hearing was chaos. Mitchell's lawyers filled one side of the courtroom, 5 attorneys in expensive suits, armed with motions and objections. On Ethan's side, David, Patricia, and a single banker's box filled with evidence. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Catherine Lopez, listened to both sides present their arguments. Mitchell's team claimed Ethan had violated his duties, stolen company property, and acted recklessly. David countered with documentation of Mitchell's systematic corruption, price-fixing schemes, suppressed safety studies, communications showing deliberate decisions to maximize profit at the cost of patient lives. Your Honor, David concluded, Robert Mitchell didn't just violate his fiduciary duty. He turned Gatsby Pharmaceuticals into a criminal enterprise. The board's vote to remove Mr. Gatsby was based on false pretenses and coordinated fraud. We're requesting immediate reinstatement and removal of Mr. Mitchell from all positions. Judge Lopez studied the documents. The courtroom held its breath. I've reviewed the evidence presented, she said finally, including the article published this morning and the supporting documentation. Mr. Mitchell, the allegations against you are severe and warrant immediate investigation. Mitchell's face went pale. However, Judge Lopez continued, "This court cannot unilaterally reinstate Mr. Gatsby as CEO. That requires a board vote. What I can do is issue an immediate injunction preventing any changes to patient medication authorizations until these matters are resolved. Elizabeth Connor's treatment will continue as previously authorized." Relief flooded through Ethan. Sarah, sitting in the gallery behind him, let out a choked sob. Additionally, Judge Lopez said, her voice hardening, "I'm ordering a full audit of Gatsby Pharmaceutical's pricing practices and referring this matter to federal prosecutors. Mr. Mitchell, you're advised to retain counsel. This hearing is adjourned." The gavel came down. Mitchell stood frozen as his lawyers scrambled. Federal prosecutors. Audits. Criminal investigation. Everything he'd built, destroyed in a single morning. He turned to Ethan, his expression twisted with rage and something that looked like disbelief. "You actually did it. You burned it all down." "I told you I would." "For what? A girl you just met? A patient you'll forget in a week." Ethan looked back at Sarah, who was crying and smiling at the same time. "For people who matter more than money. You should try it sometime." Mitchell's laugh was bitter. "You're a fool, Ethan. You could have had everything." "I do have everything." Ethan turned and walked toward Sarah. "I just didn't realize it until I met her." Outside the courthouse, media swarmed. Cameras. Reporters shouting questions. Ethan held Sarah's hand and faced them. "Mr. Gatsby, is it true you're taking back control of Gatsby Pharmaceuticals? The board will decide that. But regardless of what happens to me personally, I'm committed to ensuring pharmaceutical pricing reflects patient need, not corporate greed." "What about the allegations against Robert Mitchell?" "That's for prosecutors to determine. I'm focused on making sure no other family has to choose between bankruptcy and survival." "Mr. Gatsby," another reporter pushed forward, "is it true you fell in love with a patient's daughter? That this entire situation started because of a personal relationship?" Ethan looked at Sarah. She squeezed his hand. "I met Sarah Connor at the lowest point of her life," he said clearly. "She was fighting for her mother with everything she had. And yes, she changed everything for me. She showed me that some things are worth more than empires. And I'd burn 1,000 companies to the ground before I'd let her mother or anyone else die because of pricing decisions made in boardrooms." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "So yes," Ethan continued, his voice strong and certain, "I love her, and I'm grateful every day that she had the courage to tell me the truth about who I'd become." The questions kept coming, but Ethan was done. He pulled Sarah through the crowd, Patricia and David flanking them, until they reached the car. "That was," Sarah laughed through her tears. "You just told the entire world you love me."
Good.
"Now everyone knows." She kissed him then, right there on the courthouse steps, cameras flashing around them. Ethan pulled her closer, and for a moment, nothing else existed. When they broke apart, Patricia was grinning. "We should get back to the hospital. I have a feeling Elizabeth is going to want to hear about this." The drive back was surreal. Ethan's phone exploded with messages, board members requesting meetings, investors pledging support, patients thanking him. The narrative was shifting. Mitchell was the villain. Ethan was the redemption story. But all Ethan cared about was the woman beside him, holding his hand like he was the only solid thing in a chaotic world. "What happens now?" Sarah asked quietly. "Now we rebuild," Ethan said. "A company that values people over profit. A system that puts patients first." He looked at her.
Together.
"Together," she echoed. When they arrived at Mount Sinai, Elizabeth was sitting up in bed, watching the news coverage on the room's small TV. Her color looked better. Her breathing was steady. "Mom." Sarah rushed to her side. Elizabeth's smile was radiant. "I saw everything. The hearing. The press conference." She looked at Ethan. "You did it. You actually did it." "We did it," Ethan corrected. "Your daughter started this. I just finished it." Elizabeth reached for his hand. "Thank you. For my life. For my family." Her voice grew stronger. "For showing us that good people still exist." Ethan's throat tightened. I'm not good. I'm just trying to be better. That's all any of us can do. Elizabeth looked between him and Sarah. Take care of her. She's stronger than she knows, but she'll need you. Mom, Sarah's voice cracked. I will, Ethan promised. For as long as she'll let me. Sarah leaned into him, and Ethan wrapped his arms around her. Through the window, the city stretched out below. Millions of people living their lives, fighting their battles, searching for hope. Somewhere out there, other patients were watching the news and daring to believe that maybe, finally, someone was fighting for them. The war wasn't over. Mitchell would face trial. The company would need restructuring. There would be battles ahead, legal, financial, personal. But for the first time in 5 years, Ethan felt like he was on the right side. And with Sarah beside him, he could face anything. Comment if you're ready for the beautiful ending, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Three months later, Sarah stood in the doorway of the small apartment in Brooklyn, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Behind her, she could hear her mother humming in the kitchen. Actually humming, something Elizabeth hadn't done in over a year. The Lumicella had worked. Not just worked, transformed. Elizabeth's vision had returned almost completely. The inflammation that had been destroying her body had receded. She'd gained weight, color, life. 2 weeks ago, she'd gone back to teaching. Part-time but still. Her students had thrown her a welcome-back party that had everyone crying. You're up early. Ethan's voice was rough with sleep as he wrapped his arms around her from behind, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. Couldn't sleep. Sarah leaned back into him. Too much thinking. About everything. She turned in his arms. How different our lives are now. How close we came to losing it all. Ethan had moved into this modest 2-bedroom apartment 6 weeks ago, after selling his penthouse and most of his assets to fund the legal battles and company restructuring. It was a far cry from the luxury he'd known, but he'd never seemed happier. Any regrets? She asked. Not a single one. He kissed her forehead. Best decision I ever made. The board had reinstated him as CEO after 2 weeks of negotiations. But the company that emerged was radically different. New pricing structures tied to income levels. Expanded patient assistance programs. Transparency in all financial decisions. The stock price had tanked initially. Then, slowly, it had started climbing as investors realized ethical practices could still be profitable. Just not obscenely so. Mitchell was awaiting trial on multiple federal charges. Most of the old board had resigned. The company Ethan now led was smaller, leaner, and infinitely more focused on its actual mission, saving lives. Mom wants to know if you're staying for breakfast, Sarah said. She's making pancakes. With chocolate chips. Is there any other kind? They moved into the kitchen together. Elizabeth stood at the stove, her younger brother John sitting at the small table doing homework. He looked up when they entered, grinning.
Ethan.
Can you help me with this math problem? It's about compound interest, and Mom keeps trying to turn it into a lesson about saving money. Because you need to learn about saving money, Elizabeth said, not turning from the stove.
I'm 15.
I don't have money to save. Yet. Ethan sat beside him, looking at the worksheet. But when you do, you'll thank your mom for the early lessons. Sarah watched them, her family, somehow whole and healthy, and together despite everything that had tried to tear them apart. Her throat tightened with gratitude, so profound it hurt. Her phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Board meeting in an hour. Final vote on the new pricing model. You coming? Sarah had been asked to join the new patient advocacy committee Ethan had established, a board position specifically dedicated to representing patient voices in company decisions. It paid well. More importantly, it meant something. I'll be there, she texted back. You have to go, Elizabeth said, sliding pancakes onto plates. It wasn't a question. Board meeting. The new pricing structure. Then eat fast. Elizabeth set a plate in front of her. And Sarah? I'm proud of you. What you're doing, giving patients a voice, it matters. I learned from the best. Sarah looked at her mother. You taught me to fight for what's right. And you taught a billionaire the same lesson. Elizabeth's smile was warm. I'd say we make a good team. The board meeting was different from any Ethan had chaired before. Gone were the aggressive profit projections and shareholder value discussions. Instead, the room held doctors, patient advocates, researchers, and yes, some investors. But the conversation had shifted. The new pricing model will reduce revenue by approximately 37% in the first year, David Chin said, presenting the financial projections. He'd been promoted to CFO after the restructuring. However, patient access increases by over 300%. Long-term, we project stable growth as we rebuild trust and expand our market through ethical practices. What about R&D funding? One of the new board members asked. Can we sustain innovation with reduced revenue? Patricia answered. We've restructured our research priorities. Less money spent on Me Too drugs that just duplicate existing medications. More focus on actual unmet medical needs. It's leaner, but more impactful. The vote was called. Sarah watched as hands rose around the table, one after another, approving the new model. It wasn't unanimous. 2 investors voted against, worried about returns. But the majority held. Ethics over endless profit. Patience over stock prices. Lives over luxury. After the meeting, Ethan found Sarah in the hallway. We did it. You did it. No, he pulled her close. We did it. You, me, Patricia, David, everyone who chose to fight. This isn't my victory, it's ours.
His phone rang.
He glanced at the screen and his expression shifted, surprise, then something that looked like hope. It's Senator Williams, he said. She's been leading the congressional investigation into pharmaceutical pricing. He answered on speaker. Senator. Mr. Gatsby. I'm calling to inform you that the Affordable Medication Access Act passed committee this morning. It'll go to the full Senate next month. Senator Williams's voice was warm. Your testimony was instrumental in building support. Thank you for having the courage to speak truth to power. Ethan's grip on Sarah's hand tightened. Thank you, Senator. For listening. For fighting. Keep doing what you're doing. The industry needs more leaders like you.
She paused.
And Mr. Gatsby? I heard about your engagement. Congratulations. Sarah's eyes widened. Ethan grinned. News travels fast, he said. It does when you're changing the world. The senator laughed. Take care of each other. The call ended. Sarah stared at him. Engagement. I was going to do this tonight. With candles and wine and a whole romantic setup. Ethan pulled a small box from his pocket. But I've learned that the perfect moment is usually just the honest one. He dropped to one knee right there, in the office hallway. Patricia, walking past, stopped and gasped. David poked his head out of his office, eyes wide. Sarah Connor, Ethan said, his voice steady and sure. 3 months ago you stood in the rain and called me a murderer. You showed me who I'd become and gave me the courage to become someone better. You made me believe that redemption was possible. That love was real. That some things are worth more than empires. Sarah's hands covered her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you, Ethan continued. I love your courage and your compassion and the way you fight for everyone you care about. I love how you turned my entire world upside down and made me grateful for it. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of the gift you gave me that night. He opened the box. A simple diamond ring. Nothing ostentatious. Nothing that screamed wealth. Just beautiful and honest, like everything between them had become. Will you marry me? Sarah dropped to her knees in front of him, laughing and crying at the same time.
Yes.
Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her while their colleagues burst into applause. Patricia was crying. David was grinning. Down the hallway, other employees had gathered, watching and cheering. When they finally broke apart, Sarah pressed her forehead to his. I love you, even when you surprise me with proposals in office hallways. Especially when I surprise you with proposals in office hallways, he corrected. 6 months later, Sarah stood in a small garden in Brooklyn, wearing a simple white dress, holding her mother's hand. Elizabeth looked radiant, healthy, strong, alive. John stood nearby in his fur suit, trying not to fidget. Ethan waited at the altar, David beside him as best man. Patricia sat in the front row, crying already. The gathering was small, close friends, colleagues who'd fought alongside them, patients whose lives had been saved by the changes they'd made. No press.
No spectacle.
Just love and hope and the promise of a future built on better choices. As Sarah walked down the aisle, she thought about that rainy night outside Mount Sinai. How she'd been drowning in grief and rage. How she'd confronted a billionaire and expected nothing but dismissal. She'd gotten a revolution instead. And somehow, impossibly, she'd gotten love. Ethan's eyes never left hers as she approached. When she reached him, he took her hands, and the world narrowed to just the two of them. "We're really doing this," she whispered. "Best decision we'll ever make," he whispered back. The ceremony was simple. Vows spoken from the heart. Promises made with absolute certainty. When the officiant pronounced them married, Ethan kissed her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Because to him, she was. At the reception, Elizabeth gave a toast that had everyone crying. 3 months ago, my daughter saved my life by demanding the world be better. And in the process, she saved a man who'd lost his way. She raised her glass. To Sarah and Ethan, proof that courage and love can change everything. Later, as the sun set and fairy lights glowed in the garden, Ethan pulled Sarah onto the makeshift dance floor. "Happy?" he asked. "Happier than I knew was possible." She rested her head on his shoulder. "We've come so far from that night in the rain." "We have. But I wouldn't change a single moment. Not the pain, not the fear, not the loss." He pulled back to look at her. "Because it all led here."
To you. To us.
"To a life that actually means something." "To changing the world," Sarah said softly. "To changing the world," Ethan agreed. One patient, one price, one person at a time. They danced as the stars came out, surrounded by the people they'd fought for and with, building something new from the ashes of what had been. And in the morning, they'd wake up and keep fighting. For patients who couldn't afford medication. For families facing impossible choices. For a system that valued human life over profit margins. But tonight, they celebrated.
Love. Victory. Hope.
The things that had always mattered most. The things worth any price. Thank you so much for being on this journey with Sarah and Ethan. If this story touched you, please leave a comment sharing your thoughts. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now so you never miss another story. Remember, courage, love, and standing up for what's right can change everything. See you in the next one.